Hey, Matt.
Look at that. Right on time.
Perfect. How are you? Never better.
All set? All right, we're gonna open the Monday, November 13th, 2017 Board of Selectmen meeting at 6:31. We stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we don't have any submission for public comments, so I'll read the warrants. Motion to approve payroll warrant number 18-19 in the amount of $150,726.63. You get a second?
Second.
Seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
Motion to approve bill warrant number 18-19 in the amount of $1,155,859.71. Can I get a second?
Second.
Seconded. Any further discussion?
Breakdown, please.
Yep, so the majority of that is Pentucket, $775,000. Light Department is $177,000. Health insurance and taxes for payroll is $67,000. Water and sewer, $13,000, and the town bills are approximately $125,000.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
Next up, we have discussion possible vote. We have summer program 2017 recap with Matt Castanway. Right on time, Matt. We like that.
I think he's gonna hand them out.
Thank you. Thank you.
So prepared. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, thanks for having me. Hope everyone is doing well. I completed for you a brief summary of this past summer's program, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions. I'll just go through this for the thousands of people watching at home. So the first part of the summary just reviews the administrative and staff makeup. So you see myself there. As we discussed prior to the summer, there were 3 on-site directors. So Annie Collagen was there approximately 3 days per week. Some weeks she was there 4. Ashley Cummings was there approximately 1 day a week. Some weeks she was there twice. And Ryan Panero was there approximately 1 day a week, some weeks twice as well, depending on the field trips that we had. So some of the bigger field trips, we had at least 2 on-site directors go on the field trips for safety and supervision. Our senior staff this summer included a front desk supervisor who also oversaw our first aid, an arts and crafts instructor, and an enrichment coordinator. We had 14 counselors this past summer, 2 at each grade level, grade levels ranging from 1 through 7. And we had 2 custodians this past summer, one who worked 7 hours each day and one who worked 3 hours each day. The next section reviews registration. This summer we had 162 total campers who registered for our program, which was up from 11 from 2016. And because we were up slightly, we were able to have a few extra CITs this year. So we had 34 total CITs registered, up from 3 from 2016. The next section breaks down the towns that were represented at this year's program. So Groveland, we had a total of 143, Bradford and Haverhill 34, Merrimack 10, West Newbury 5, Methuen 2, Newburyport, and North Andover each had 1. The next section briefly summarizes the financials. So this past summer, our accounts receivable equaled $132,173.86. Our payroll was $73,665.80. Our expenses were $48,767.97. Our total accounts payable equaling $122,433.77. And with the lower tuition prices this year compared to 2016, and also being able to pay our hardworking counselors at least at the minimum wage level, which we did not do back in 2016, I am happy to say that we still ended up with a positive $9,740.09. Now for the fun part. Some highlights of our activities. So our weekly programming included sports and games outside for the kids, gym time, computer lab. We had a game room, arts and crafts classes, and project enrichment classes. Some of the special activities that we completed this summer, the groups went over to the Haverhill High School pool each week for swimming. We had a pop rock concert for the kids. We had weekly theme days for the kids with some great contests and prizes. We had a baseball and street hockey tournament for the kids. We had a magician come visit our program, and we also had a talent show. Our field trips this year, we were able to go back up to 9 field trips this year, which was great. We went to Water Country in Portsmouth, Chunky's Cinema Pub, Wamisit Lanes, which is in Tewksbury, Joe's Playland, which was in Salisbury, Candia Springs Adventure Park, which is in Candia, New Hampshire. We went to the aquarium in Boston. Our big mountains trip that we had, week 6, the older kids went to Attitash Mountain. They have a big adventure park there, and the younger children went over to Storyland. We did our annual beach trip to Cranes Beach in Ipswich, and we went to Dave and Buster's, which is like an indoor entertainment center in Woburn. So we had some great field trips. Just so everyone is aware of something not on here, as far as family and parent communication, we continued with our weekly events emails, which went out to all parents. We had a blog that was updated weekly, and each group of counselors wrote a blog entry each week about the happenings for their group. And we also continued with our Facebook page as and we had a weekly newsletter that goes out to families and kids primarily every Friday. So another great summer. Huge thank you to our on-site directors who really house down the fort each day. You know, it's not an easy task to have, you know, that many children on site. It's like running a school, and they did just a great job, as did the entire staff this year. So again, I hope that the Board of Selectmen and the town of Groveland is happy that we were able to offer another great and quality summer program for 2017.
Great, thank you. Just a couple of items. Again, excellent summer program.
Thank you.
I like that you're reaching out as far as Methuen and North Andover as well for people registering this. I appreciate, exceptionally like that 88% are still from Groveland, which is good. Another great program. I mean, the community loves it. The parents love it, the kids love it, so it's good to see that it's not only thriving, but you're actually lowering the cost too, which is actually better. Just a question, what is your plan with the difference of the $9,700? What are you looking to do with that?
We are looking to, again, be able to offer some scholarships for next year. Something that I should have highlighted, that this past summer, we were able to offer scholarships for some residents of Groveland so that their children could attend tuition-free for all 7 weeks. So that's something that we were able to start doing this past summer because of some of the
Yep.
leftover money. So I wanted to make sure that we had some leftover money available again for 2018, so we can do that.
Do you know how many scholarships you were able to hand out from last year's funds to this year?
Past summer,
Yeah.
I believe it was around 6.
Okay.
And that was only offered to Groveland
Right.
children.
Great. Ed, any questions?
No, just, all the bills have been paid, and this is the difference after the bills have been paid.
Correct.
Okay.
Bill?
No, I didn't know if we were putting any money from the program toward the maintenance of the school, or any money setting aside for the,
That was
We-
gonna be my question to
Oh.
Denise too, but was that there, anything else?
no.
No? Lisa?
That would be my same question. So I appreciate the service that this provides to the town. I guess I would just be interested to hear how you view that as collaborative, in the sense that I don't think that you pay any fees to use the town space. So how can you kind of work together with us to, whether it be, taking on a piece of, this year wouldn't be fair because you didn't get to use the field, but moving forward, whether that's a piece that you want to maybe consider contributing to, so that
Well,
you're,
we did contribute
this past year?
the summer program financially to the field, to the construction of those fields.
Okay,
The majority of the fields were paid through the summer program over the course of the
right,
last
right,
several
right, right.
years.
But it wasn't an ongoing thing,
I think
correct?
she's
It
looking
was-
for maintenance, ongoing maintenance, like going forward, would you take 30% of this outside of, offering scholarships, and then put it back into field cutting,
Yeah,
landscaping, and then fertilizing and more seeding and that kind
Oh,
of stuff? Just to make sure that those fields that we invested in stay up and
Oh, yeah.
and take the abuse of not only
Absolutely.
the school year, but the summer program and all that stuff.
That's something that, that I'm proud of, that we were able to
Yep.
contribute that to the town, because, I remember those days when I was a Bagnell student, and, I'm sure you've heard this story a million times, but, the fields were awful back
Right.
then. So, to see that, we've been able to contribute that, obviously, we wanna keep that going. So, any additional funds that we have that we can put towards that, absolutely.
And I want to clarify, because I don't want to diminish the fact that, was it $30,000 that the program contributed to?
I believe it was more.
Yeah, it was around 100,000, I believe.
Oh, okay. So $100,000 was initially contributed by your program to sort of initiate the work that was done on the fields?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure that you're properly recognized for that.
First of all, Matt, I want to thank you for reconsidering and coming back this year. I know I can speak firsthand from not only my children, but I'm pretty close with a lot of children in the town, and the parents, and they just absolutely loved it. This year was much better than it was the year before. And once again, your program is so successful, you've thrown off money. So that's always a good thing. The 6 scholarships, how much did they cost you in 2007 approximately? What was the cost of that?
About 4,200,
So you'd be looking,
maybe a little more.
so you'd be looking to hold back somewhere about 4,200 from the 97 in order to offer the same things, which I really don't have any problem with. Some folks, they could use the help. I think it's just an excellent job. You're coming back next year, I hope? I don't have to talk to your wife, do I?
You might have to, we'll see, we'll see.
I've got your phone number, I don't mind calling,
I'll pass the phone right over to her.
Once again, it's, good people are hard to find, and when I find them, I'm very reluctant to let them just walk out the door for nothing. So, again, thank you for your continued service to the folks at Groveland, and especially the children. I think this is, 12 consecutive years?
Yeah.
It's a great program. Hope you keep it going for another 120 years.
Well, thank you for your kind words, I appreciate it.
Don't thank me, I had nothing to do with this. This is all on you.
Thank you.
Bill, you want something else?
Yeah, so, back to what they all had said is, as you just said too, the place was a dust bowl for years. We're there, we are, we got some grass growing. Every year, we're gonna need to put some money aside to keep that up, and I don't think it's fair to have to say that you should have to pay for it, by no means, but, I know I've sat here and we've tried to get people involved, and it doesn't seem like it's going anywhere, so personally, I think we're gonna need $4,000 or $5,000 a year over and above what the town, the maintenance the town will be mowing and what have you. I didn't know if you can commit some kind of a number to us out of that money, so we can keep the keep the lawns up and what have you, and keep the fields looking good.
From the current 9,
Well, you said 4,200 you needed for scholarships. Out of the 97, that leaves like 55, so could you commit some of the 55 toward?
I don't see why not, Denise, I'll defer to you.
Yeah, it's really up to you. And I'd have to say, I think there was excess funds in the account the year
Yeah,
before,
there's
so.
still some-
There's still some money, so 9,700 isn't all what's in there. There's still more money in that
And I don't
account.
think you want to empty it either.
No, I'm not comfortable emptying it.
Right, so I think what Bill's getting at is, whatever the excess is, could you commit to
I mean, I
35,000,
was
35%?
I was hoping, to
Well, hold
have 6.
on 1 second. How much is the fertilizing program?
Isn't that about 2,000?
No, it was a little more than that.
was
I
under
want to say
3.
32,
Yeah.
3,200.
So could we maybe let him pay for the fertilizing? Because, something like that?
Yeah, it's up to, I mean, as long as he can fit it within his budget.
That's the
Yeah,
most,
I mean, thinking about next year, I was hoping to have 6 set away for scholarships. The 6,000 set away for scholarships, the 6 scholarships are around the 4,200. That wasn't a set number. We didn't go into, it saying that we were only going to, have 6 scholarships. It was based on the applications and, Denise and I, reviewed the applications. We had a requirement that they needed to follow to qualify. So next year, we may have 8, we may have, 9, so. So if we.
Especially as people hear about it.
Yeah. So if we keep, 6 and the fertilizer's 32, that more than covers it. Plus, like we just said, there's an existing balance in there anyway.
right.
So,
Well,
Yeah,
if I
I'm-
recall correctly, Matt, 97 is probably the lowest number you've thrown off in the entire time you've done it, right?
But
I
he
think because
also
they
lowered the
lowered the
tuition.
fees, right? They
Right.
lowered the fees and.
yep.
But I think part of it too is volume. Based on what happened the year before, I think, there wasn't the, you didn't have the attendance that you had in years prior. Now, after this year, I think the word is out, you might find that 196 grows to somewhere around 225,
Oh,
which would
yeah,
help you out too.
Absolutely. So we used to be well in the 2s, so.
Yeah, I think you might very well be back there next summer, based on what I've heard.
So I'm totally comfortable with that if we want to.
Yeah, I just want to keep what we got going.
Oh, absolutely.
And, you guys are gonna be using that in the hottest time of the year and what have you, which is, obviously put your tents out there and what have you, and water the lawn with extra water, but I just, hate to
Yeah.
see what we got going.
No, that sounds good.
And I don't think it should be totally your burden, but you do use it, you are gonna use those fields, so kicking in that much, I think, would be fair.
Yep, I agree.
Okay.
And, my thought on that, that's a great idea, because you're using some of the school resources, your lights, your electricity and water probably. I don't know, you got custodians, is any of that school custodians that you reimburse? That's just your own people?
Yes.
So, yeah, it's obviously, none of the expenses are like for water and for electricity, et cetera, for the school.
Pay
So,
for water,
you pay separately for that?
yeah.
And so, yeah, by contributing something for the backfield, it would, that'd be a nice touch. But on the scholarships, is there any chance of partial scholarships? I thought you mentioned that the scholarships were for the whole 7 weeks. Could somebody do a scholarship for a week?
We allow for a minimum of 2 weeks for registration, so that we would do something 2 weeks or over. The scholarships, this past summer just happened to be for all working parents, so they needed the 7 weeks, and, after talking and doing some research, the majority of the people out there who would apply and qualify for the scholarships would be working parents, so the majority of them would probably need 7, but absolutely if somebody didn't need all 7 weeks, we would.
Nice
consider that.
gesture, nice gesture to offer that.
Sure.
Thank you.
That's it?
All set.
All set?
All right, thank
Thanks,
you.
Matt. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you back next year.
All right.
Thanks, man.
You start planning for the program in January or February for next summer? Is that when you? Okay. Oh, December. You guys kick it up a month? Was it always December?
We open registration February 1st.
Okay,
So,
great. Thank you.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Mike here, Mike, in the hall?
I can go look. I confirmed with him the other day too, so.
That's really the lowest number they've kicked off in years. So they should be able to swallow that nut without a hiccup.
Yeah. That's great that he was able to lower the tuition.
I just see him going one step further. You know, have it tiered. You live in Groveland, it's this.
Yeah.
Live in any other town, it's this. Just like when I go to Winkinshiek Beach, it's $25 to park. Or I go to another beach, right?
He's not here yet, so I'm gonna take another topic or jump around a little bit.
Yeah, we can move down to the public comment discussion, information submitted by Jan Dempsey.
And she's just walking in the door, so.
Right. Guess we don't want to,
You can, I'm sure, start that conversation if you want.
well, this was, Ed, this was something that you wanted on the agenda. So I read through the submissions of what she was getting at as far as guidelines for some of the process and some of the requirements some other towns are doing. Mike, did you want to talk about this, or were you going to wait for? No, you don't have to. Just asking. No?
She was
You wanna
literally
go
just
get
walking
her?
in the door. I will also say Essex Tech has a really good policy, so if you are looking to, actually, someone just emailed it to me today. So they have a good public comment policy. It's not different, it incorporates most of it, it's a very concise and clear policy. It was actually a really well-done one.
Can you forward that to us?
Yeah, I can send you an email, I got it this afternoon.
Be super.
Are you going to pitch it tonight, or?
I'll try.
Okay.
I
thought you came in
I
one.
don't know, I want,
I don't know, I can't find her. Yeah, Mike Dempsey, 33 Uptack Road. So I guess the idea was, you know, we have public comment already, but, you know, that sticking point is that you need to notify the board before the agenda closes, and that actually turns out to be 4 days before the meeting because of the weekend being there. And if we look at the number of public comments that have taken place over the last year and a half since this has been in force, it's been greatly reduced. I know that a couple of times I've done it, and I can only think of maybe a couple of other times that we've actually had public comment. So I think, you know, that even though it doesn't seem like much of a burden, it seems like it's really put a blanket on people walking in the door and being able to bring something up, a question or whatever. I think the advantage of allowing people to walk in the door and talk to you, whatever it is, whether it's a question, a comment, some issue to bring to you, or perhaps even an emergency situation that occurred before, after the agenda was drawn up. I think it just gives the people of town a sense that, you know, you're open for business, you're open to listen to them. And I think that, you know, you certainly, the chair still has control over the meeting. I can remember one time when someone was in here discussing something and got very upset. But, you know, even if that happens, you are in control of the meeting, and certainly the chair can stop it. The chair can limit the time. If you have a busy agenda and you don't really want to dedicate too much time to it, you can put a time limit on it. So I think that you've got enough flexibility to at least put it in place and see if we get more openness and more participation by the public. I think that's the other thing, is participation. You know, I mean, you see here, you know, I'm here, but there's not too many other people that hear. Obviously, hopefully, people watching on TV, but I don't really call that participation. Maybe that's more like you're keeping informed, but it's not participation. And I think participation is important, especially in our small town. So I would ask you to maybe even try it as an experiment for 6 months or a year and see, you know, is it a valid effort? Is it worth doing? You know, do we get more public comment, more participation? Thank you.
So you think if we change the policy that there'll be more people showing up to the meetings to?
I think so.
I mean, we can't go anywhere but up, right?
Right, right. I
Three
mean, I'm
people in
doing
here.
my best to be here, but
I mean, I don't see us having 40 people in here unless it's a
No.
hot topic like,
No.
you know, the school committee or the
Right.
Bagnell Field or something like that.
right, but just even, you know, 2, 3 people coming in and, you know, maybe giving kudos to somebody or, you know, asking you a question. I think it's just, it shows that people are participating.
Well, I would welcome more participation.
Yeah.
I don't really agree with you. I mean, that's my position, only
Sure.
because I consider myself to be pretty approachable. Like, if you called me on Saturday, said, Mike, I really need to talk about something on Monday night, can you put me on for public comment? I know it's beyond this, and I'd be, yeah, okay, you know, tell me what it's about, let's talk about it. I don't think this limits any kind of censorship or anything. I think it's just helps the board be prepared on what people want to talk about. Because as Bill stated at the previous meeting we talked about this, we've been kind of hoodwinked and blindsided by people getting up there and just going off and expecting us to make a decision on something or to have a conversation on a certain topic that we had no idea what was coming up, which leaves us at a disadvantage, right? It means we're ill-prepared, and to be in this seat and be ill-prepared is not a good feeling. So I like to have a lot of information. I like to be prepared for what I'm doing. That's why I kind of like the way the policy is, but I'm only one person.
Sure. It's a little different, an agenda item. I think you do certainly want to be prepared. People coming in for public comment should not expect to have you answer, should not even necessarily expect you to give them a response to whatever they bring up.
That's
And I
been part of
think-
the issue before, is that should
Yes.
has been the real word to use, right? Because
Right.
should and do are two different things.
Right, but you may need to remind everyone when they come up, you know, you put a big thing right here on the podium that says, public comment, you will not receive an answer for your questions tonight, or something to that effect. You know, because, you know, I absolutely agree, and, you know, that's why you have agenda items, because if it's anything of a serious matter that you can know ahead of time, you certainly want to know about it ahead of time.
No, I agree. And even, like I said, with, you know, public comment, if something came up over those 3 days that was absolutely necessary that we talk about it, you know, without that submission, obviously I'm going to allow it. I'm not going to censorship, especially if it's important or if it's an emergency. My personal feeling is, I like to be prepared. In my job, I'm prepared. When I'm in DC and I'm talking to high-level people in the government, I'm prepared. I don't go in there and just like, hey, what do you guys want to talk about? you know, because that doesn't go over very well with these people. So I like to be prepared in my roles. I'm kind of anal about that, I know, but that's just me. Let's start, Bill, you have anything?
Yeah, I've lived it. I know that you come to a lot of meetings. I have seen people come in passionate on a subject. I, as a chairman, try to say, calm down, slow down, stop, whatever. They have their group of people that come in with them, 4 or 5 of them come in, they're all mad about something or whatever. It opens a forum for them to get going. It opens for a forum for a bunch of people to come in and get together. I mean, and granted, I understand it's a good thing to have public comment. If someone wants to come in and come to the podium and say, hey, thank you to so-and-so, or we're having a fair downtown, or something, I think that's good. But what happens is, people take something that's supposed to be good, and it turns into bad, and that's what happened, and that's why we did what we did. And I clearly understand what you and your wife are trying to say. I clearly get what you're trying to do. I don't have a problem trying it again, but I can see where it's gonna go again. It just, you know, Facebook, an issue on Facebook could rise, and then, yep, going in there Monday night. Everyone's on Facebook when I was chairman, and go in there Monday night. It's, we're going down there, bring the group in, and everyone would show up. There was a lot of people on certain subjects. And like you say, not too many people here right now. They're not here because it's not because of the public comment reasons. It's because there's nothing really on the agenda. These guys, 2 guys from the rec, where's the rest of the rec people they're supposed to be going down there to build that place? Where's all those people? There should be 50, 60 people in here talking about that thing. There's 2 people here. You know what I mean? It's just, people don't want to get involved. They don't. And it's sad to say, and people run busy lives today. They do, and they probably don't have the time. But, I mean, I'm not criticizing what you're doing. I clearly understand what you're saying, but I lived it, and I saw, trying to shut it down, how it gets out of hand. And
And
then they get criticizing me because I shut it down. It's like, you wouldn't let me talk. They're on Facebook. Not that it matters, but you wouldn't let us talk. Well, you weren't, I asked you a couple times to calm down and be quiet, and then it got out of control. But that's my sense.
Ed?
Yeah, I like the idea. And if you just read just a couple of things under this paper that was presented, the public comment period would allow citizens to announce events of town interest, ask questions, receive direction on Groveland issues. And that's important. Sometimes when people come in, or they come in the past, they don't know where else to turn, so they're coming in to ask the Board of Selectmen, where do they turn from here? And also just thank a public body for its efforts, make a suggestion of improving the town, or bring an issue to the attention of the board. And the parameters, a couple paragraphs later, speakers who participate in the public comment period should not expect discussion, debate, or dialogue. Generally, any matter presented during the public comment period will not be acted upon, nor any decision made during the meeting. Matters are taken under advisement and may or may not be considered for future agenda items. And I think that kind of spells it out pretty good. But it's nice to get public participation in the meetings. And I familiar with numerous cities and towns that have done this. And under the right parameters, it works. It helps the people become aware of what's going on. It shows that the people have an interest in coming in, and I just think that by making the 48 hours notice, so like, what did you say, Mike, like the Thursday before,
Yeah.
then that kind of puts restrictions on it, and I'd like to try it for a period of time. I like this sheet that was presented. It was well thought out, well written, and I'd like to give it a try. You know, a comment should be short, to the point, 3 to 5 minutes. 5 minutes, I don't think most people need 5 minutes. 3 minutes is probably good. But at least, we're elected by the people, and we should hear what they have to say at a public forum. Thank you.
Lisa?
So I respect sort of all the comments that were made. I understand where Chair Wood is coming from. I also think, though, that the perception of being approachable is sort of, it's not necessarily an objective, because some people may feel like they can approach somebody in a position of power, and other people might feel that they can't. So I think in terms of ease of access, removing that layer makes it a much easier process. I think that despite the fact that there may have been instances in the past where people weren't appropriate and it turned into something that was a free-for-all, that the chair always has the ability and the role of reining that in. And, you know, maybe in the past, it hasn't felt that that could be done, but if somebody's behaving inappropriately, they need to be asked to leave. And I know that maybe there are people that wouldn't like that, but unfortunately, if we set parameters, people need to abide by them. And I think if there's criticism of us following a protocol like that, I mean, that's the nature of being in an elected position. I think we take the good with the bad, that sometimes we make decisions that people don't necessarily agree with, but if we're acting from a place of fairness, I think it is what it is. So my feeling is that we should try to give it an opportunity and see how it goes, and I defer to the chair in terms of, you know, we as a group, that the parameters that have been suggested, I think, are very reasonable, but I do think that the chair has the ability to sort of shut down inappropriate comments and can set pretty strict guidelines about how people can speak. I mean, it has to be respectful, you have to use appropriate language, and when you're asked to stop speaking, you need to abide by that. So that's my thought. Thank you.
Well, I'm rather inclined to agree with the chair that I like the current policy the way it is. I've seen it turn into a mob scene, and that's really the tough part. But I'd like to be open-minded about it and maybe take this as the first initial rough draft to produce a more robust document that spells out more specifically the do's and don'ts. Most of what I witnessed here is just an outright lack of respect from some of the mobs that, I guess I use the term loosely, that can gather. But I have no problem with allowing people to talk. That's how things get done. But it's just got to be done in a much more civil manner than what I've seen exemplified from some of the events I've witnessed here in the past. So while I'm inclined to agree with Chairman Wood, I'm also inclined to remain open-minded, and maybe we can work on this document as a first pass and tighten it up and maybe come to some agreement that we can all live with, see how it works. I think you've done a great job here to spell out, you know, some of the things that need to be done, and I commend you for taking that task upon yourself. Most people don't. As your husband just pointed out, not many people come here, don't know why. We're a likable bunch of guys, I think, you know, they could have fun. As far as being approachable, I think Mike makes a good point. I think most of us are approachable. I don't think we're that scary and mean. I know I've been approached by a number of people. I'm always willing to listen, Mike. I think I've told you that 1,000 times. It costs me nothing to listen. But it's got to be respectful. It's got to have a point. It's got to have a reason, not just, you know, yelling and screaming. So I'd like to see us move forward with this document as a first draft, and maybe incorporate some of the things that Denise just sent out in another, from another town, and maybe come up with some really specific guidelines. And these are the do's and the don'ts, and if you step out of line, then you'll be asked to leave. If you don't want to leave, then you need to be removed.
Yeah, we'll have to review that email that you sent out.
So can I suggest we table this matter and move forward as this is the first draft, and try to work on something a little more,
Yeah, I mean,
Robust.
I'm not opposed to not talking about this at all. As I said, in my world, no one at the White House or the Capitol Building or the Pentagon takes a meeting just on a whim, and open discussion is just whatever you want to talk about. It's set time, set guidelines on what we're talking about, when it starts, who's involved, and when the meeting ends. It's more of structured world that I'm in like that, but I'm open to, as Bill said, tightening this up, incorporating what Denise just sent out. See where
Maybe
we can
others.
agree on- Yeah, to see where we can agree on a trial basis for 4 months, 6 months, maybe in January. But I'm with Bill Dunn. I've seen some people just come in here and take control, and the chair tries to take control of the meeting, and then the perception of the chair just goes downhill from there because he's trying to exercise his authority for the meeting, and it just looks bad. And I don't want to be put in that position when I don't have to be either. And I know Bill didn't want to be in that position when he was the chair. So that's why we came up with this policy of, hey, submit what you want to talk about, so at least we have an idea, and we can do some kind of background investigation on it, so we can talk about it knowledgeably and intelligently, rather than just you come up, talk, say what you want to say, and then leave. Because, if you ever heard of the term a hot mic, people can just come up and say whatever they want to say. So, I don't know, I'm assuming we're not going to vote on this unless someone wants to make a motion, but
I think it sounds like we're not ready to make a motion, though. If we could get the additional information from Denise and potentially have it on the next agenda, if we could review it and then maybe come up with some language that we as a group could agree on, I think that would be the next step.
What would happen, just to throw it out there, what would happen if we turn around and take what Mrs. Dempsey has done, we'll work on it, but what happens if for the next, say, 3 meetings, we drop the 48 hours out of the verbiage and see how that goes?
With no criteria?
What's that?
With no criteria right now?
Well, it says it must be made 48 hours in advance. So if we took the 48 hours in advance out, we already know the chairman has the ultimate say in what have you, and he can control the meeting, but let's just take the 48 hours out and see if the attendance comes up, and I think that was Mike's point, that the 48 hours is holding people back. Let's just, for the next, I don't know, how many meetings, see if the attendance comes up. And we'll start there, then we can also have a reconvene, and let's say in 3 meetings, and we'll talk again about this, and that night we'll know if the attendance has come up, and we can discuss this further, the paperwork in front of us.
So you'd like to leave the written submission part, but just remove the timeline?
Yep. I mean, that's
Right, no, I'm just
me.
making notes. I just want to make sure I got
I
it.
mean, that's just me. I mean, that way there, when we talk about this again, we'll know, it's like a little trial period, when this comes up before us, if the attendance has come up again or not.
well, I think you have to put some kind of parameter, like an hour before the meeting, there has to be some kind of deadline. You can't
Sure.
say, all right, it's 6:31, we're going to open the meeting, oh, we got 4 people that want to talk about A, B, C, D.
And then there's got to be time limits, so, the first person doesn't get up there and go on for an hour, and then the second person goes on for an hour and a half, and then the third person rebuts the first 2 and goes on for 4 hours. So I think we're a long ways away from that right now, but
Again, that's what's happened in the past.
But right now, what do we have?
Well,
If-
I think the current policy
Right.
still states only 3 minutes.
Right. So we're staying with
Does
the
it?
policy,
I'm
the
gonna
only
check.
thing
I think it
is the
does.
submission part of it, that's all I'm talking about. Our policy that's in place, we're not trashing that stays in place. And the only thing I was talking about, taking the 48 hours out, then talk about this in 3 meetings, whatever you guys decide to do, whatever. If the attendance comes up,
So, just for clarification, you want to, for the next 3 meetings or so, you want to take out the 48 hours, so just allow people to come in and...
yeah, but on that guidelines that's already in place, based on the guidelines we already have in place. It's 3 minutes or whatever that is, and the chairman still has the power to stop it if it's out of control, et cetera, and then we'll in that 3 meeting time, we'll discuss this paperwork that's in front of us tonight.
So this has a limit of 5 minutes per person is what currently, a limit of 5 minutes per person. If the number of people wishing to speak exceeds 3, the chair may limit that individual discussion.
Either that, or we just table it until we have more time to talk about it.
You still need some kind of deadline, whether it's 48 hours or whether it's 2 hours.
An hour.
You still need to have some kind of deadline prior to the meeting starting.
So, Respectfully, I think that's what this is trying to address, though. I hear what you're saying, Mike, and I understand that you come from a place where you sort of have the expectations provided to you in advance. But I think the suggestion is, there are quite a bit of guidelines in effect right now. There's 12 different items that are in place with the current public comment policy. So I think there are quite a few parameters. I mean, I guess, to me, it seems to be sort of contradictory to sort of look at this policy and then say, but you still have to give notice. That's sort of going against sort of what the suggestion was. The suggestion is that people be able to come in and speak following these parameters without having to provide that notice. Is that correct? Okay.
Go ahead.
Provide the notice and have the public comment at the end of the meeting, or sometime you'll have the notice, piece of paper in front of you to read prior to allowing the public comment at the end of the meeting, or later in the meeting.
So what do we want to do? Do we want to work something in? Oh, Tracy, yeah.
Hi, Tracy Ilford, 4 Abbott Circle. Now, I just want to ask you to respectfully consider adding the public comment, because, say, for example, if I was allowed public comment today, my comment would have been, I would have first, as a veteran in Groveland, I would have thanked Mike for speaking at the Veterans Day ceremony on Saturday. I would also publicly thank the fire chief, Robert Lave, for allowing us and the veterans to use the fire station at the last minute for the ceremony, because the temperature outside was so cold. And I understand that you have been blindsided by people in the past, but like I say, that can be addressed. But I think if you allow it once again, you will allow more people, whether it be myself or others, to emphasize a lot of the good that's happening in Groveland.
So, again, I feel I'm pretty approachable despite what the little plaque says here.
Yeah.
So if you would come up to me before the meeting and said, Mike, hey, I just want to make a public comment about Veterans Day. You mind? I would have said, absolutely, go ahead.
See, under the old law, the rules, I would have considered that, the 48 hour. Now that you've said you might consider doing something at the last minute, I think,
Right, which
finding a middle
mitigates the
ground.
whole question about having to submit it Thursday afternoon and something could happen Friday or Saturday.
Like, I wouldn't have thought of, that, we'd use the inside of the fire station at the last minute.
Right.
And again, I, like a lot of other people, like to thank people for going above and beyond, as you did, by speaking to the group at the Veterans Day.
Right, and again, all you would have done is, Mike, I want to go on for public comment for 2 minutes, and it
Okay.
wouldn't have been an issue.
I thank you.
So
for
I
that.
think that's a compromise,
Right. And
right?
that's what I
That
hope we
still
come to.
controls a little bit of the meeting, it still controls a little bit of the topic, but at least, have an understanding of what you want to talk about.
Right.
Now, if you would come up to
And
me and
what-
said, Mike, I want to talk public comment,
Right.
I would have asked you about what, right? And if you said, well, it's a surprise, I would have said, well, no.
Yeah, well, I agree, there should be no surprise.
Right,
Should be no surprise.
okay.
To anyone. Thank you.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
So, the comment you made was very nice, but if you had to put it in writing or submit it 48 hours in advance, then it becomes less important?
No, it might not have crossed my mind, again, like everyone else, sometimes, things are spontaneous, and you're thinking, about what happens, and, like I say, like use the inside of the fire station, because of the cold temperature.
And I think with your timeline, you would have had to submit that Thursday.
Right.
In preparation for that.
Right.
But to mitigate that, it would have been just asking the chair for, just to be able to talk during,
Right,
public comments, where it's not been.
like I say, if we find a common ground
Right.
that somebody could go to the chair and say, I would like to do this,
Absolutely.
and I think that might solve a lot of the problems. Thank you.
Yep. You want something?
I'm thinking.
Oh, all right, let's get Ed.
Yeah, the way the parameters are written now, a spontaneous response wouldn't meet the 48 hours. If somebody went up to the chairman and said, like Tracy, wanted to make a comment on Veterans Day, and it wouldn't be allowed because it's prior to, after the 48 hours notice. So it's really, with the chairman's approval, you can violate the 48 hours. That doesn't make sense to me. But I think Tracy's right. He wouldn't have been able to make the comments, even if he saw the chairman before the meeting and said, I'd like to make a comment on it, it wouldn't be allowed because it's not 48 hours notice. So I support the public comment. Sometimes it did get out of hand. I think with the right parameters, it could be done. This is a great, a great sketch here, and I think it covers about everything. But people should be able to come in and speak to their elected officials and voice their concerns. And it's covered here that they should not expect a discussion, a debate or a dialogue. They just state their case, and that's it.
All right, if no one's gonna make a motion, we're gonna move on. Yep.
So in terms of parameters, the current guidelines say that you can't discuss individual so there's a lot of guidelines in place. You can't discuss individual personnel issues. You can't make negative remarks or disparaging comments. And the topics must be relevant to the business of the Board of Selectmen as a whole. So I think that there are a lot of parameters in place, and I feel like we live in a democracy, and to say that people can't have this forum, to me, is a form of censorship. And I recognize that other people may not agree with me, but the example that I give in terms of government is that when you go to a press conference and you're a politician and you're asked questions, you don't know every question that you're going to be asked in advance. People have an opportunity in that forum to ask you questions. And to say that we have to always know everything in advance, to me, is very much censoring sort of our constituents around what they can and can't say. But if it follows those guidelines, I'm in support of people having that forum. Thank you.
Well, if no one's gonna make a motion on either way, then. we
I'll
can-
try, I'm gonna try making a motion if I can. Written submission for public comment must be kept to, was it 3 minutes?
5 minutes.
5 minutes?
Policy's 5.
5 minutes per person.
So that's already in the policy, so what I would recommend, Bill,
I'm trying to just, what I'm trying to do is when, on this line here, so when people know, there's a little bit of a guideline when,
so I think what would be helpful, I think what you're saying is, we need to reiterate to people what the current public comment policy is.
yeah, but no one's gonna come in here and read a whole policy. All I was saying is, I
But
was
it
gonna.
needs to
No
be,
one followed the
maybe,
previous policy.
but maybe it needs to be at the door, and you have to have reviewed the policy in order to be able to speak. And if
Who's
you
gonna
don't,
police that?
well, I think if somebody comes up to the podium, you can say, have you reviewed the policy? Is what you're going to share in compliance with the policy. I think that's a very reasonable expectation of people.
What if they're illiterate?
Well, you're verbally asking them.
But verbally asking them what?
Well, I can read the policy to somebody if they tell me that they haven't read it.
That would assume somebody knows there's a policy out there.
I
You
think,
gonna try and make a motion?
No, I'm good.
No? Right.
Well, I think that the agenda should still identify a policy, which this one currently does. I think if you're just looking to tailor either the 48 hours or not written, I don't know if you want at the approval of the chairman, or if you're just going to take all of that out and just make it in compliance with the public comment policy. I think that's what you really need to, I don't think you need to change the current policy other than maybe tweaking a few things if you're looking to.
so I would make a motion that while we are exploring making a formal change to the policy, that we allow public comment consistent with the current policy in place without the 48-hour notice.
but keep in written submission?
Is that what's in the,
Yes.
And
So
then
they
what's the
would-
timeline? Is it
well, they would
30
have to
seconds?
bring in the written submission with them. And if they start speaking and it doesn't comply, then they're not going to be permitted to speak. And then the written submission would get given to us for us to have, to address whatever they have had to say to respond to the future, because we're not going to be responding in the moment.
So they can still submit it in advance or bring it with them?
So can you repeat the motion? So we know what we're talking about.
Denise, you've written it down, haven't you?
Yeah, I'm still working on that.
Okay. So what I
Maybe we
said
could do a dictation machine.
was I would like to make a motion that we remove the 48-hour notice requirement for the time being while we continue to explore making a permanent policy change. But in the interim, removing the 48-hour requirement and requiring that people comply with the current public comment policy, which there's 12 items on that. So they still need to submit it in writing. They still need to follow all of those guidelines. The only piece that's removed is the 48-hour requirement.
Okay. Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, further discussion? Of all the things people have come to me and talked to me about, this has never come up. So I don't know why we're spending so much time on it. There's not that many people who come to make public comments at all. There's not many people that come to the meetings at all. So we spent a lot of time on this that I think is a real non-issue to a majority of the town. So any other discussion, Bill?
No, I just don't think I like her motion, but I think we should give it a trial period, that's all I'm saying.
Bill, anything else? Further discussion?
No?
You have a quick comment
Quick,
before we vote?
Very quick, Jan Dempsey, 33 Uptack Road. Very quick. I just really feel strongly that the flavor and to the townspeople to feel and believe that they can come and be heard by the board, not having to single out one selectman over another, find them at the coffee shop or whatever, but can come before the board with an issue is really good government. I just believe that very strongly.
And there's
I
nobody at the
work-
door telling people they can't come in to talk to the board.
What is in place now is very prohibitive. For example, you have to do it by Thursday. That's not really 48 hours, that's 4 days before the selectmen's meeting. And I'm just saying from personal experience, I feel it's very advantageous to the entire town and also to the board, because you get to hear things from people, even if it is something that they're upset about, you get to hear it. I mean, this board has, in the past, asked the townspeople to not use Facebook, but to come to them. And yet, now this is in place, it makes it even more difficult for people to come before the board with something. And, you know, I would think you would want to hear people and what's on their minds and what they want to say. I think it brings the town together. And I know I want to be quick, but I work for 2 towns. I work for Hamilton and Wenham. And just as an example, both of those towns, Board of Selectmen's meetings, which I have to attend very frequently, they have the period of public comment at the very beginning of the meeting. And yes, there will be times when somebody comes in with something that's critical. That's going to happen. But overall, I think it really builds good government. It helps people to feel that there's transparency and that they can be heard by their board. And I just think that people really appreciate that and appreciate being able to do it without a whole lot of, you know, time constraint and whatever. There's already a lot of constraints, which is good. But I think adding another one is unnecessary and unhelpful. So I do really appreciate you considering this, and I am still really in favor of having this as part of town government, and thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
so we have a second. All those in favor?
Yes.
All those opposed? It passes. Moving on to the rec committee. You guys have been waiting for a while, sorry about that. Updates regarding the Pines with Mike Houghton.
You said it right the first time.
Sorry.
So, that's okay, no worries. So, yeah, so what I want to do is just give you an update on where things are at. So with season now ending, we've got two elements that we're gonna start work on, which is a trench across the middle of the field for future lighting. And that should start this week, so what we're waiting for is DigSafe. DigSafe has given the okay as of tomorrow that work can start after that point. As the gentleman from Groveland Electric said, well, I doubt there's any utilities there, because not that long ago it was under 40 feet of sand, so.
Should be all set.
Should be all set, yeah. So I don't know if I hear from everybody else.
Shouldn't be
I
a
did hear
long
from
time for
them.
dig safes to go over there, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, Groveland Electric was great. They got right back to me and asked a couple questions, and they gave the okay right away. So we're gonna start, the trench is gonna be dug, conduit's gonna be laid in there just for future. So when there's money for lights, we'll be able to put lights in for both sides of the field without the issue of having to destroy the field to get the wires across the field. So the conduit will be laid, and we'll be ready to go from that perspective, so that'll take care of that. I got input from the electric department on the conduit sizing, and based upon some specs we've gotten from one firm that gave a bid on the lights, so we at least knew something we were based upon for that decision. The other piece of work that's gonna start this fall will be, right now, will be a trench along the slope of the hill, so that any heavy rains can be handled in that trench back to the existing pond, so that water won't flood across the field, because the experience from football has been that, when it's been heavy rain, the field has gotten pretty mushy, so, we want to avoid that for new turf on there, so that's the second element. And then depending on weather, the hope would be that we get, the element for the topsoil to be brought in and then graded out before, winter sets in hard enough that can't be done. That's a maybe, but I won't say it's a definite.
It's pretty cold out.
It is pretty cold out,
So you,
yeah.
so you think that's gonna get done?
No, I'd say that's
Probably not.
less than 50% chance that'll happen. But
So that'll
we'll start
be
leaving that out.
early spring?
As
most
soon as
likely?
the soil will be workable, yes.
So is that gonna have time to kind of take hold and grow in before it starts getting used for spring sports and summer?
Spring I wouldn't, no,
Yeah.
there'd be no way. Maybe by fall.
Fall.
We have a chance of that, yeah.
Okay.
But compared to what's down there now, Shay, you can say that, there's not much down there.
So get rid of the waterfall coming off the hill.
Yeah, and.
Plant some
not
grass
dealing
and-
with
yeah.
rocks and dirt and.
Where's the
weeds.
existing pond that you reference?
It's on the Main Street side of it. It's in the back of that. So if you go down, you pass where the bathrooms are there. And it's kind of off in that open field area to the back corner, almost the corner of that. If you look at the slope there, there's a pond that was put in.
Like
Down
a
by
little-
down by the river.
There's a little shed there, too.
It's like a detention pond?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
yep.
Can I ask a question? So, Mike, what do you expect for usage of the field? So, do you think that no one should be on it until next fall? Or will people be able to use it during the process?
Well, once we get the topsoil in, then I'd say no, we wouldn't want anybody to use it
Okay.
at that point in time.
Okay,
So,
just so I know, because people have already put in field requests, so I just want to
Oh,
make
okay,
sure I'm on
alright,
the same
yeah.
page.
Yeah.
and who are the current customers down there? I know PYF, I saw them playing flag football, that must be different than PYF, so it's another
Yes,
organization.
that was a one-time,
Oh, it was a one-time thing.
that was their
Oh.
tournament,
Lights.
yes.
Oh.
Our lights were going back, supposed to be today, but I actually just checked and I haven't picked them up yet, so.
So lacrosse uses the big field, football, soccer sometimes, and then sometimes we have these other events, like the flag football came in. I think it's football and lacrosse that use it the most. They sort of alternate days,
Soccer?
football and lacrosse.
Soccer doesn't use that.
They
Periodically.
really, very rarely,
Yeah.
because they use the other fields down there.
There was nets, they were using it at times, because I remember seeing the soccer nets down there, and there's actually still nets over by the softball field.
Yeah,
So I know that somebody's using it for soccer.
it's the two main groups. And lacrosse plays in the spring. Where could we move where could we possibly move them if that field
Well, if
is?
you think about it, right, the field that's gonna be worked on is at the far end of the road, right beside the softball field. So that's the flat area in that area, but there's the areas you're going down to that on the left-hand side. That's a flat open area right now that's not gonna be worked on.
Right.
And that upper field, almost
And
nobody
no one's
uses
ever on that upper
field,
field,
which
right.
is actually good size, and it's
Yeah.
not the great soil, but
None of it is
Like
really,
crews
so.
going across there, and it is flat. We would do special teams up there a lot of times because you're just on your feet.
Yeah, is that way you had originally had plans for tennis courts?
Tennis
No,
courts are
by
in
the
that kind of
bathroom.
gravelly area when you first come in, you come down, start down the hill and
Yeah.
down the curves are right there, that area, it's kind of gravelly.
Field, we could use that other field.
Yeah, one of them was gonna be softball, and then one was gonna be open for now.
Right.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope, I've been working with Denise, the other thing we're gonna have to take a look at when we're gonna get the soil in will be, you know, the issue I spoke about before would be fencing,
Yep.
so that we don't have damage, you know, by people deciding they wanna drive across the field or
Yeah.
press on the gas pedal rather than the brake when they pull at the park type thing, you know, that kind of issue, so.
Yeah, because it's at the same level of the playing field.
Right.
In that
Straight shot.
It's not a, that's all it takes is, you know, it's always been a fear of being down there is you get people parking or whatever, somebody hits the gas or whatever, there's nothing, there's no boundary anywhere between.
I know, I'd like to see speed bumps along that road myself, because I see kids driving their bikes, they're running across the street, and there's nothing there to slow anybody down or even make them think to slow down. So,
Well, I think we could certainly do the temporary fencing while the project is being worked on, and then we could look at either, like boulders or, you know, some type of barrier to put, I don't know if you want to fence the whole thing in permanently, but we could certainly do something.
Looked at an idea of going from where the new electrical box is there, putting a gate there across that little road. And then if you went up and around to, even back towards the bathrooms, then anybody that was gonna really get down there is gonna have to drive a long way to get down there. So it would be, you take away the danger element,
Yeah.
but that would be, so, you know, we poked around and getting some ideas on using the kind of guardrail that's up near the top, you know, the wooden post with
Yep.
with a wood cross type idea, so.
Okay.
Anybody have any questions for Mike?
I do. So you talked about spreading the loom,
Yes.
and have you considered anything with sprinklers yet? If the
Yes.
loom's gonna get spread, have you got a contract in place, or have you got anything figured out for sprinklers?
We do, yep.
So you have a contractor in place ready to go?
Well, not in place because we haven't gotten to that point where we can start the work to be able to say, yep, well, we got some pricing, but we don't have anything to say you're ready to go, because we haven't gotten to that point yet. We were waiting for the fields to be finished being used so we could get the work started.
So if you were to start spreading dirt in the spring, you would then get someone right then to go ahead and get the sprinklers in? I'm
Yeah,
trying-
we line it all at the same time, correct. Yep, that's the plan.
What's that?
All right.
Ed?
And Mike, do you have a cost on the lights?
The cost I got from one firm was just over $100,000 for the lights and the poles.
And how about from the Groveland Electric? Is that something that they can work on?
They were happy to help us on, in fact, they've been very helpful on, you know, looking at the electrical element to it, but that's not really their jurisdiction anymore, what I was told.
No, I mean, like, you're gonna do it on poles, obviously.
Right.
So they must have access to poles, and they probably have the lights, too.
Lights, no.
No?
Like, they did the softball fields a long time ago, but that was a whole different era, I'll call it. But now I'm told, no, that's not something that they really get into. They're happy to help us where they can,
Okay.
but that wasn't something, I mean, I haven't talked to them about poles specifically, but I did talk to the company, could we use something other than the poles they recommended? And they said, yes, that's possible, so. You know, I was just trying to get ideas now, so I knew what we were facing from an electrical perspective, knowing that was nowhere near in the budget to do lights right now.
Yeah, what I'm thinking, two schools of thought here.
Yep.
If you had an estimate, and you knew what it was gonna cost to put the lights up,
Yep.
you know, get a hold of our state senator, see if you can't get something in the state budget. A lot of communities do that.
Right.
And look, if somebody else is getting it, we should. And then the other thing, if there's nothing available there, something that might take time, how about donations? You know, you see a lot of places that they're putting up a building or an athletic field, and they got they got a big Mercury up there with, they need X amount of dollars, and people donating to the cause.
Right.
And that, just a couple of thoughts.
Sure, no, that's good thought. Yeah, in fact, we've talked about that as a committee, about looking into options like that as well.
Okay, thank you.
The money you have on hand right now, left, how far along do you think you can get with it?
For the work we're gonna do this fall, we can definitely be within that budget, no problem.
So will that get you the seed and sprinklers?
From what we estimate
I
out,
think
yes,
so,
it
yeah, I
should,
think
yep.
so.
Okay. So do you think that you would come back before the town for more money to
The next
now?
step would be if we want to look at, right now immediately, no.
No, I'm saying to bring this process into the next second phase type
Then
thing,
we would, yeah. we would-
maybe put something together to keep the project moving forward.
Right. The lights, the other fields, et cetera. Like we talked
Right.
about, we were focusing on this one field, so we wouldn't be having a bunch of things partway through.
Okay.
Son? Yeah, please. Bill?
Yeah, I've got a few questions for you. Number one is the lights. Unless they recently changed their policy, I know that the light department was very instrumental in the GBL's goal of putting lights in their big field. They purchased the poles, they sank the poles, they put up the lights. I know we had volunteers sink the wires so they wouldn't be hanging overhead. And this was,
2 years ago?
yeah, I mean, 18 months ago. So did the policy change so radically that,
I don't want to speak to it specifically, but when I talked to them about it, that wasn't something that was in their realm.
because from what I understand, they had a CPA grant, the GBL did, right? And Groveland Electric, by far, was the best price, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah,
to
Bill,
put in
in
those
all
things.
honesty, lights aren't the important element right now, because I knew it's not within our budget. It was
Yeah.
just more, I wanted to make sure we had done our groundwork, so to speak, so that, when the time came to look at that phase of the project, that we would not be disturbing a field that we had already spent money on putting in place.
Right.
So, to the point, not to belittle any of the help that I've received from Groveland Electric, we just were getting ideas on what it would take to do it and what the layout. So the firm that had given me a layout, had actually given me a drawing layout, so that at least we knew if we were to do something like this, whether it's that or something else, we knew kind of what we were facing from a layout perspective. That's what
Right.
I was really after right now.
Okay. Now, as far as revenue generation,
Yep.
these fields are not going to maintain themselves, right? So what kind of plan do you have for revenue generation so that these fields are self-maintaining?
Well, that's something we have to work on as a town.
I mean, I know I've talked to the Babe Ruth people have come forward to me and asked me, geez, I've got some great ideas. Have you reached out to those folks? The softball people, the baseball people. You've got the football people represented here. Your only people you haven't is the lacrosse people, and collectively come up with some kind of game plan that we can generate the revenue from these groups to be self-sustaining over the years, and maybe build up a little every year in reserve, so when we have a special project, we need a new pump, not to drill a new well, we've got some sources of revenue for that. Has any kind of committee been put together, or any kind of plan been formulated to kind of look at that before, look at it now, while you're kind of down, so when you hit the spring, you've got some kind of mechanism or vehicle to start generating that revenue?
We're not, that's not part of the focus of what we were doing right now, so that wasn't something we've taken a look at at all.
Money is always a part of the focus, right? And eventually you're gonna run out if it's just a town-funded thing. But you've got a lot of groups with a lot of people there using a lot of most of the facilities. And if they were just Groveland kids, I don't know if I'd have such an issue, but we do have kids from all communities using those fields, right? It's not just Groveland children.
There's some decisions there to be made over time as to, what was gonna be the policies on the field use. And then if it's a revenue generating item, then it would have to be a decision made on who's gonna spearhead that.
And I think quite honestly, we have some beautiful fields down there. I think you could probably find organizations, and we could legitimately say to these organizations, like, to charge a fee, essentially, user's fee for the fields. I wouldn't have a problem doing it, I know with our organization, especially if we had great fields down there, and a lot of these organizations, as you know, they're all kind of doing their own thing, raising money for themselves, but I think if they've got a place to be and realize, hey, we got a great spot here, I'd be willing to put money down for my organization. And again, I'm only speaking for the organization that I'm running. But I know I've spoken to some of the guys from lacrosse, I've spoken to them. One of the things we've talked to as a whole is a little bit about what you said, though. I know we haven't, like, put a committee together, but we started talking about maybe we can all get together as a whole and work together as a group as opposed to all being individual organizations. So has been some talk. In fact, I met with lacrosse, softball, all of them just recently, all of us getting together saying, you know, hey, can we kind of get together as a whole and maybe make it like a full organization, whether it's Pentucket youth organization, you know, across the board, you know, especially when you're doing stuff with 3 towns and all that. So I just think there's opportunity. So I know what Mike's trying to do, but I know you got some prideful people that run some of these organizations. I know myself, if it meant us mowing the lawns like we did in the past over at Strawberry Fields, we'd mow them ourselves if we had to. You know, if we had something good, I can tell you we'd take care of it.
Now, Pines is a very unique compared to the other fields we have because it is a multi-use.
Yeah.
Where Shanahan is almost exclusively used by soccer, and I know Washington is just about exclusively used by the GBL. You are in a different situation where you have multi-use, but I would think that you'd want to put that kind of in place, that, you know, thinking about that revenue generating stream now as opposed to when you run out of money and then you're stuck. To get that ball rolling sooner rather than later would be my, you know, if I had my choices, I would rather see you guys do something sooner rather than later in that, getting these groups together and say, okay, listen, we all use these fields. They don't maintain themselves. We got to come up with a game plan, boys and girls, to generate enough revenue, whether it be through users' fees, signage, what have you, whatever, to make sure that these fields stay as pristine as we envision them to be for years and years and years to come. And that's what I don't want to see all the money gone and then you start looking for that, you know, revenue stream. By that point, it's too late. And
I mean, and the other issue though too is they are Groveland's town's fields, so I don't know how that, you know, I don't know how that incorporates, you know, you're looking for us to revenue, but it's still the Groveland's fields. So I think there's got to be some probably game plan between both, you know, the town as well as these groups that are using the fields, you know, and I think it's something that everyone's going to have to talk to figure out how it's going to work, and it may be a game plan going forward, but I agree, Bill.
Lisa, you had a question?
I had a few questions. So one was regarding CPA funds, because it sounds like CPA funds were used for the lights at Washington Park. So lights on a recreation field can be a permissible use of CPA funds? Okay. And secondly, I'm sorry, I don't know what your name is.
Oh, sorry, excuse me. Che Condon, 2 Berrywood Lane.
Okay. So I agree with what Mr. Condon said, and referencing back to some things that Denise said at some previous meetings, is that it's primarily Groveland residents that are using those fields. So I think we have to straddle this kind of place of the fact that it's town property that town residents are using. If people that are not from Groveland are using it, I agree with the revenue generating piece, but I think we sort of have to be careful in terms of how we sort of manage that piece, because at the end of the day, it is a town property.
right, and the other 2 town fields that are used by the other youth groups are basically maintained almost exclusively by those youth groups. So, you see, there's 2 fields that the town really has no burden from, because those 2 groups basically pay for everything.
Right, other than the cutting of the grass, which we would still do with the pines on the fields. I mean, I think the biggest issue down there is, you know, not unlike what we just talked about with Bagnell, it's fertilization. I think I pay $3,500 just for pretty much the baseball and softball fields. So to add the utility field, to add another softball field eventually, obviously those costs are gonna go up. You know, and since I've come here, I've talked about, you know, recreation and fees, and, maybe this board needs to look at a user fee and an actual we have a permit, but there's no fees attached. It used to be if someone uses the light, they'd have to pay us for the electricity. That hasn't happened in years. So perhaps we need to actually look at what's being utilized down there, what groups, and if there's a nominal fee that we can charge each group to, make up some of the costs for adding those additional fields and the maintenance like that. It's not gonna be cutting the grass, because we would do that anyways, and we would do that now. But it's just that maintenance. So part of it would still come under our budget, but then I think we need to work with the groups to come up with some additional funds to continue to maintain them.
And it's not just these groups.
No, it's
Am I
not.
reminded, you've got high school baseball playing over there?
Yep.
Absolutely.
I mean,
I think the tough part, though, is that, so if we say high school baseball is gonna pay, it's still coming out of our budget in some way. Because if the school has to pay for it, that's gonna be funneled down to us in terms of, we have to pay for extra costs at the school. Basically,
true, but now it's shared by West Newbury and Merrimack as well. We don't fund 100% of that cost.
okay, I
Because
understand that piece.
Right, if they're playing exclusively at the Pines, if they're not
Right.
playing in other communities, then yes, those costs would be shared.
I agree with that.
Couple more comments. Bill?
I've gone back to say it, and I'll say it again, and kind of your point, you guys are using the fields and what have you. You shouldn't have to pay the brunt of and that's how I take it from you guys, how I feel. You guys shouldn't have to pay the brunt of the expenses down there. And I can see where you're going, I can see where you're going. And I have repeatedly said, we should have a Pines committee or a Pines group of people that manages that property, per se. They come to you guys and say, we need this from you, we need that. They're gonna be the people that will go out and do signage and do advertising, and like they do in Georgetown. It works very well for the Georgetown, all the fields over there. They make a lot of money, and they don't have to go back to the town people. They do go to the town people for $65,000 a year. The town gives $65,000 a year to their rec committee, whatever you wanna call it. That's where their base money is, and then the rest of the money is generated. I think that's what we're missing over there. I think we're missing that link. We expect from you, we shouldn't, you know what I'm trying to say? We need help, but we're missing that link. I think the link, and when I was here before, I tried saying, we're missing one link, and the link is the top level. The top level runs it, and then it comes down into you guys and say, hey, we need this, users fees, et cetera, et cetera. You guys give into the kitty, they manage it, they go out and do signage, they maybe get Trinity Field for a year or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's where we should be looking, and how we get there, I don't know.
All right, Ed, last comment?
Yeah, Mike, just, wasn't there plans for a concession stand down there to generate some revenue?
That's been talked about for years. So, yeah, I think it was in the original process was to take the concrete shed down there and make that a concession stand
Okay.
at some point in time. But, that's all part of what's not currently on the dock.
Well, that's something that could be run almost every night. And
Yeah, I would think so.
and it would help generate some revenue there.
I would think so.
Thank you.
Yeah, when we did the electricity, the transformer, we accounted for that, the lights, a possible concession stand. We took that all into consideration when we did that transformer.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, you're welcome.
Thank you.
right, if you
Nice
get that money
job.
from some of the boaters.
They're already paying to use the,
They need ice, don't they?
they don't pay very much.
Nobody.
All right.
Nobody does.
Moving on to personal bylaw discussion. So Denise, you had sent out some samples for local towns that are using their own personal bylaws just a few weeks ago anyways.
Yeah, it was a while ago,
Actually,
and I
probably more like 2
apologize,
months
because
ago.
yeah, I don't have those in front of me.
No.
I don't remember who I sent you.
But I guess
I do.
the discussion was how to take a first step on tackling revising our own personal bylaws, since they've been a mess for quite some time. My personal thought is to use something that's already been written and tailor it to our own needs. But I don't know, Bill, Neil, do you have anything to add to this?
No, I think that's a great idea. Maybe we take it section by section, so we can be as comprehensive as we can possibly be. And in working hand in hand with some of the other department heads as well to make sure that it incorporates the things that they were hoping to see in it. to make it as complete a document as we possibly can for, not just for, the next couple of years, but for a few years to come, so that we or future boards don't have to revisit this issue every other year. But I have started to get into all of these. I did print them and trying to take out the best parts of each.
Yeah, and I think taking section by section would be the most efficient way to do it, but.
I think if you try to take this all in one gulp, you're just gonna choke and it'll never get done, and that's probably why it hasn't got done to this point.
Right.
I don't think we as a board even have the authority to do that. The way that it currently reads is it's a personal advisory board, and that can only be changed unless we go to, it can only be changed by town meeting. So if we as a board want to change the personnel bylaws, we would need to go to town meeting and obtain permission to be able to do that. The way it currently reads, any changes have to be made through a personnel advisory board.
So I just want to comment on that. I actually went through to find out what happened with the Personal Advisory Board. It was disbanded in September of 2005. Apparently, the members of the Personal Advisory Board, which one of them still works here, so I actually asked her for the history of it, they kept making recommendations and kept providing information to the selectmen, who kept overriding those decisions or making their own, which is why actually all of those members resigned, and at that point, the Board of Selectmen just abolished the committee. So there has not been a Personnel Advisory Board, which is probably why the last, I believe, true policy we have is dated 2005.
2005.
So that being said, though, I don't think that we have the ability to just forego that personal advisory board unless we went to town meeting and got the townspeople to say, we're going to forego the personal advisory board and just allow the Board of Selectmen to do it.
Yes, I mean, this, I would say, for the most part, yes, because our bylaw does reference the Personal Advisory Board, but also the existing policy says the Board of Selectmen are responsible for the personnel functions and the personnel bylaw of the town. So I would say, yes, I do agree that the Personal Advisory Board should be removed from the language if that's how you'd like to proceed. But it also talks about the Board of Selectmen with the authority to make policies and to issue rules and regulations necessary for the administration of the personnel bylaw.
So that's
So
part
it
of the
kinda
issue is
contradicts
there's
itself.
contradictory language.
Correct.
Well, I guess the other piece of that would be that I think there was a personnel advisory board, maybe the previous Board of Selectmen did not take the requests as they should have, but I'm not an expert in personnel bylaws, and to me, that's the reason that you convene a committee. We're here to do a lot of different things, and to take on this piece is a huge undertaking. I know for me personally, I would much rather have, a committee perform that task and bring it back before us, rather than us having to review a ton of bylaws and then sort of take a stab at that. It's pretty labor intensive.
So the assumption is that the Personnel Bylaw Committee would be more competent than we would be.
Yes. If you have people that have that as their background, who work in HR and have experience on personnel issues, I would say yes.
I'd be interested to see how many people actually volunteer for that.
But we haven't even explored it,
It's
so.
like chances of someone not having fish in the airplane movie.
Bill, anything?
Not really. I mean, I think it should be tabled, and I think we should put a feeler out there to see if we can get anyone to come in and wants to take this on and has more time to spend on it than we do, because I have a lot of people that work for me, but I'm not gonna take a stab at without more knowledge.
Well, and I would say if you do plan to bring back the Personal Advisory Board, I think there should be some, because I haven't found any makeup of that, and I was told several different things. At one point, it had representatives from each sort of major group, the library, the town hall, members that are covered by it. And the last few years that it existed, there was only one employee, and the rest there were three people. One was an employee, two were residents. So I'm not really sure what the actual makeup of that committee, if there was a purpose originally. In my prior experience, excuse me, in other towns, it was 3 members that were covered by the personnel policy, and then 2 members of the community. I will say, before I left my prior town, they did away with the personnel board, because it's the Board of Selectmen that has the ultimate decision on the policies, so it was the same thing there. Selectmen or the
say that-
town administrator wasn't taking the recommendations, and we felt that our time was
Being wasted.
being wasted, because we would do all this work, we would research, we would look at other policies, we would look at documents, and at the end of the day, it was someone else making the decisions.
But how much work would it be to take an existing policy from another town and then massage it to fit our needs, as opposed to rewriting the whole thing from scratch?
It depends on how much time
I
you
mean, you're not
want.
gonna take it all at once, as Bill said, you're gonna take a section, kind of review it, adjust it to our particular needs, and then take another section and review it. Either that, or we gotta wait till town meeting to see if, you know, the town wants to vote to either abolish it or reinstate the committee.
Well, I think I would recommend, if you're looking at town meeting, to either remove that section, or if you're going to re-implement. So if you're looking to re-implement it, you could do that at any time. If you're looking to remove that section, then you would need to wait for town meeting. I wouldn't waste time working on the policy if town meeting's not going to allow you to remove that personnel advisory board. I just
Right.
think that would be a waste of time, up until that point. So you could certainly continue to research it, you could, however you want to handle it. You could ask for, I mean, when I came here, I sent out an email to all the people covered by it and asked if they had any recommendations, anything they would like to see. I'll be honest, I got one. But as I've told the board in the past, there are items in here that are outdated, there's illegal wording in there.
Antiquated.
There's harassment policy and discrimination that should not be in the personnel policy, they should be separate and disseminated every year. So they're just things that need to be done, so
Well, it
it
is-
definitely needs to be updated.
It's
How you
12
want to
years
handle
old.
it is.
Yeah, it's 12 years old, so something needs to be done, so.
Does Cassandra have time to take and get one from another town and let her mull through it and try to
We've got 3.
come back?
But
to
again,
us
I
with
don't
a-
think that we have the authority to do that, I guess is what I'm saying. So I think we either need to convene a personnel advisory board, or we need to take it to town meeting and remove that piece of the personnel bylaw. I think those are the 2 options.
Well, what if we convene a committee and no one signs up for it?
Then that would provide a basis for removing it. But again, it still has to follow, it says, the language in it is that it can only be changed through town meeting.
Well, I'd be in favor to see if there's any interest from anybody before doing anything, to see if anybody's interested in actually sitting on that committee. And if we get people that are interested, all right, then we'll make a committee and they can tackle it. If we don't get anybody that's interested, then we just disband it, and then we move on to finding a way to tackle it ourselves.
But you're saying that one paragraph basically contradicts the other?
Well,
And
If
It
you-
doesn't contradict it. It basically says that the Board of Selectmen shall adopt policies and issues regulations deemed necessary for the administration, but the Personnel Advisory Board shall constitute a Board of Appeals for grievances of town employees. So there's a whole paragraph about the Personnel Advisory Board. It doesn't say that the Board of Selectmen can take the place of. It's the Board of Selectmen have ultimate say in terms of adoption of policy, but that the policy is derived from the Personnel Advisory Board.
Ed, do you have any comments?
No, I'm all set, thank you.
You done? You all set?
I agree with what you said.
So, Bill, you want to add anything else?
just want to read this to understand it a little better.
Well, it's 12 years old and it's probably not written very well.
Well, no, just the Personal Advisory Board portion is responsible for the review and maintenance of personnel bylaws. The board recommends personnel bylaw amendments. Special adopt policies and issues deemed necessary for the administration. Shall constitute a Board of Appeals for grievances of town employees. Who currently handles the grievances now?
Denise?
in Board of Selectmen.
So for 12 years, we've been running prior boards have been running afoul of these procedures?
It appears that way.
I'm not surprised by anything, not at my age, no.
Sometimes I don't want, it's not gonna come before the selectmen anyway. I know of personal things that have gone on in this town that should have came before the selectmen, they don't never make it here. I know two on hand right now that will never make it here. Because there's elected people, there's appointed people, there's a layer of democracy that stops it from getting in here, so we can't do the job anyway, so it's really a waste of our time talking about it. But I know issues never make it in here that should make it here.
I think that's a problem. I don't know what the solution is, but
But I guess I'm trying to define this. The Board of Selectmen is responsible for the personnel functions of the town. The personnel bylaw of the town is adopted pursuant to sections 108A and 108C of Chapter 41 of the Massachusetts General Laws, provides the Board of Selectmen with the authority to make policies and to issue rules and regulations necessary for the administration of the personnel bylaw.
But if you go to the section on maintenance, it talks about the Board of Selectmen shall periodically review the Personnel Procedures Manual and revise policies and procedures as necessary and in accordance with the provisions of Section 5 of the Personnel Bylaw. Any revisions to the Personnel Procedures Manual which affect the Personnel Bylaw shall be brought to the next annual or special town meeting. Which, in essence, basically says that changes have to be brought before town meeting.
Right, but I would
But it
just say,
doesn't
this is not the personnel bylaw. This is the personnel procedures manual. So there is a separate bylaw that's completely different than that. So this document is not in the bylaws.
Yeah. But nowhere in that paragraph did she read, in that statement did she read that it said it must go through a personal advisory board, or did I just not hear it?
So the actual personnel bylaw is section 2 of the bylaws. It says the Board of Selectmen shall be responsible for the development of a human resources system which meets the needs of the town. The Board of Selectmen shall appoint a personnel advisory board to assist in carrying out its responsibilities.
Can I ask where you're referencing the personnel bylaws? Where is that document?
In the general bylaw, it's the town bylaw. Personnel Advisory Board shall conduct such research and carry out such instructions as the Board of Selectmen shall direct, included but not limited to review of performance appraisals, compensation for employees, recommendation to town meeting of additional work hours and salary, wages, benefits, selection of personnel, personnel procedures, and performance appraisals. Board of Selectmen, so then, I mean, it goes back and forth. The Board of Selectmen may propose new, amended, or revised policies. Any such proposed policy may be proposed at any meeting of the Board of Selectmen. Any member of the Personnel Board or any employee may suggest policies for consideration by the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen need not consider any proposal already considered in the preceding 24 months.
Denise, you had mentioned that you didn't know about the makeup, but if you look at section 2-93, it talks about the Personnel Advisory Board makeup.
Right, yeah, I just saw that when I was
Shall be
reading.
composed of 5 members for 3-year overlapping terms, 1 member of which shall be a town employee. So only 1 member of which shall be a town employee. A member may be removed upon a majority vote of the Board of Selectmen after notice to the board. And then it goes on to talk about the responsibility. So that's actually in the bylaw.
Correct, so that's the bylaw, that's what would require town meeting. The personnel policy does not require town meeting. That's a vote of the Board of Selectmen.
So do we have that policy in place that we need to have that board?
I guess respectfully, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that statement.
That the personnel policy doesn't go to town meeting?
No, that you can change the personnel policy without following what the bylaw says. That they're separate, that you can just change, I don't believe that you have the ability to change the personnel policy without following what the guidelines and the bylaws say.
No, I would agree to that, but
Okay.
the personnel policy does not go to town meeting, is what I was saying.
Okay.
The personnel bylaw is what town meeting would have to vote if you're making any changes.
Okay.
But the personnel procedures manual is a vote of the Board of Selectmen.
I
So-
understand.
Not to outspeak,
Okay.
sorry, Mike, but sounds like this hasn't been looked at in 12 years.
No.
Okay, so what is wrong with having putting the feelers out there to have a group of people, possibly human resource people, whatever, we don't know. Maybe no one's gonna come out of the woodwork, but let's just see if we can find a group of people that will be willing to take this on, look it over, and see what they come up with and come back to us with recommendations. Then possibly in the spring, we have to go to town meeting with it or whatever. But I mean, it's been sitting for 12 years, it hasn't been managed the right way, let's get a set of eyes. If we can't get a set of eyes, like Mike said, we'll go to the next thing. But I think at this point in time, we should really, I don't have time, I don't, I mean, I don't know if you guys have time, but I think it should be a group of people that can take a close eye at it themselves, and if they're willing to do that, if not, then we go a different route.
I would agree with that. And I think Mike said it very concisely at the beginning, that if people aren't interested, then we need to go to town meeting.
Somebody want to make a motion to that effect?
So I would make a motion that we convene or that we solicit membership for a personnel advisory board consistent with what the current bylaw says, composed of 5 members, one of which shall be a town employee, and see the response that we get for people that are interested in doing that.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? Bill?
Yeah, my fear is that we get less than qualified people.
Well, that comes back to us appointing them to that committee.
True, but small towns tend to have their fair share of cronyism and nepotism and things like that, and these are far too important to leave to a couple of friends and buddies to figure out. So I just worry about that. That's my only concern.
I think we have controls over that. I mean, you can vote to approve or not approve someone based on their position and who they're close with and their experience.
Oh, I hear you loud and clear, Mr. Chair.
I think that we need to have a starting point, and the starting point for this, I think, is just to see if there's anyone actually interested. If we have people that are interested, all right, then we'll go to the next step and see if we can actually get a committee. If there's nobody interested, well, then we know no one's interested, and it's either gonna fall to us, or it's gonna go to town meeting to have some other rectified answer to it. But we gotta do something, because it's been 12 years,
Oh.
the thing's a mess.
It's a mess. It's a mess.
As Denise just read, you can do this person does this, you can do this person does this, it's all over the place. So,
No,
I would agree that we put out some feelers, we figure out if there's any interest, then we just go from there. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
Fantastic. Moving on, the vote to the board. We have the minutes from October 16th, 2017. Anybody get a chance to read those? Any comments on them?
I read those over. They look like they were in order. I move for passage.
Can we get a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Moving on to old business. We start with Mr. O'Neill.
Old business. I am good with old business, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Old business, okay. Lisa?
Approximately 2 meetings ago, we asked for a status update from Mr. Eric Halian regarding the bathrooms at the Pines. And at the last meeting, he was unable to give a report on that because it was on the heels of a storm. Can we get a status update, or have we received a response from him?
I have not. I emailed him and asked him for something in writing. I have not received it. I can follow up with him tomorrow.
Thank you.
Ed?
I'm all set.
Bill?
I'll second.
Under old business, Ed, did you have that meeting with the state contractor on Route 97?
Yes, I did.
Was there any update or anything that came out of that meeting?
Well, I voiced my concerns, and I think the highway superintendent, they were going to speak with him and see how we wanted to proceed. I know some of the items that I brought up to them have already been corrected, and they're in the process of some of them. I don't know if they're going to do them all, but at least they listened to me, and we hashed things out, and those items that weren't done according to the plan, or that they were going to talk to the highway superintendent about them.
Are you having another follow-up? Did they schedule any time frame to follow up on the status of those, or?
No,
So you're gonna have to, I guess you're gonna have to chase them down in a month or so and figure out what their solutions are?
that would be up to the road commissioner. He's going to, he'll take it from there. They're going to bring them up to him and see what he wants to do.
There was someone out there working today on the sidewalks again.
They
Yeah, I
were
saw them.
Mailboxes or the sidewalk?
I don't know, he had a bucket and he
They
was
were
walking
doing
around
the,
the curbing
um,
and the sidewalks.
concrete joints,
Oh.
in between the two, the granite,
Oh,
he was
okay.
putting.
Is that the final top coat on that road? Is that-
Yes, it is.
that's Okay, thank you. I don't have anything else. Correspondence, we have the minutes from October 30th, 2017.
I got just a couple of corrections on that. First of all, page 4, both to the board, items that declared surplus by the road commissioner. Just a clarification, and it says, items under the threshold are offered to other departments first. The items were declared surplus, and items over a certain dollar amount go to auction, and it says here, items under the threshold are offered to the other town departments. Why aren't the other town departments offered the items first before they go out to auction? Or
They
is
are.
that incorrect?
No, they are. They're offered to town departments first, and then, so you declare them surplus, then we offer them to other departments,
So
and then
that,
they go out to,
Maybe that item ought to, it says,
think the
items under the
sentence is-
threshold are offered to other town departments first. Maybe that should be corrected.
yes, I can, I think it just needs to be sort of in the sentence above it.
All items are offered to town departments first.
Yeah, I don't think, I think the policy that this board put in place had a dollar threshold. I don't think we offered everything to departments first, but I can double check that.
Okay.
Did you have another
And just
change?
one other one?
Yep,
Next page, page 5,
yep.
fourth line. Applicant was interviewed but was right for the position. Maybe it should be not right.
Yes.
And just one other comment on the minutes.
Yep,
It would help immensely if they were numbered at the bottom of the page.
okay. I can certainly ask her to do that, although she will watch this.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay. Other correspondence we have from Jim Day proposal for game day youth sports clinics. And we have the letter from the Attorney General to Kathleen Prunier regarding her open meeting law complaint. Next, we're moving to Finance Director time.
Just a couple quick things. The school building project planning workshops got underway last week. The next meetings for that are this coming Wednesday, November 15th, from 6 to 9, and December 13th, from 6 to 9. More information on those can be found on the front page of our website. They're interactive workshops to get the public involved in the building project. I wanted to say thank you to the Highway Department for dismantling the staging from Pumpkin Fest and disposing of all the pumpkins. That took place after our last meeting, so we didn't have a chance to thank them for that. And wanted to confirm, I sent out an email to this group last week about the bridge ceremony. It has been confirmed, December 2nd at 11 a.m., there will be a rededication of the Bates Veterans Memorial Bridge. The ceremony will take place on the Groveland side in the parking lot owned by Greg Stark. And since we don't have another meeting before, I just wanted to wish everyone a happy and healthy Thanksgiving. That's all I have.
All right.
Can I follow up on one of the things that Denise said?
Yep.
With regard to the bridge rededication, I think it would be an act of good faith to invite the selectmen who were in this role at the time that the bridge was initially dedicated. I just think that would be a nice gesture.
Do you know when that was? It was before I got here.
I think we could find out. I
Okay.
don't know it off the top of my head, but.
Okay.
It was 2014, I think it stamped, but it was probably authorized in 2012. I would think.
Okay.
2011, 2012, something
Maybe
like that.
AJ knows the answer to that.
Maybe we'll bring them all back like an all-star team.
Play some ball. What's that?
Well, I would say right now it is welcome to the public, so anyone is welcome to attend that.
Moving on to selectmen time. Start with Ed.
Yeah, just a couple items. Should be brought to the townspeople's attention that the new trash truck is in operation, and the trash is being picked up the same time as the recycling. I know some people like to put the recycling out a little bit later, but they are being picked up at the same time. And maybe in addition to what we have here for votes of the board, old business, correspondence, et cetera, maybe there ought to be a different, an additional item, maybe like committee reports. For, like, I know Lisa is on the committee on down at, for the Groveland Square committee, and there's others. I know, I think Bill O'Neill is with the school building. And maybe just if there's nothing new to say, maybe just say there's nothing new. But maybe that's something that might be added as a thought. And then just to remind people that I've been having office hours once a month, and I do have them tomorrow at 10 o'clock. If anybody wants to come in and just, something that's bothering them, something they want to see maybe as an agenda item, if they got a problem, we can try to take care of it or bring it before the board. Thank you.
Bill?
The only thing I had is, I have been talking back and forth, Denise brought to my attention that there was a tree that was blown over in the storm at
Nichols Village.
Nichols Village. She asked me to go up and take a look at it. I went up and took a look at it. It's uprooted. It's uprooted to the point where I can go up there with my big excavator, dig it up, burlap it, load it onto a trailer, take it down to Town Hall. Valley Tree has said they'll donate a crane and the cabling of the tree. So I know Denise made some phone calls and told the lady up there that we might be interested in it. I don't know where it went. I want to speak on her behalf. So I was just bringing the board up that that's in the works. I don't know where we sit with it, but if it does go forward, I'd like the board to know that I will be volunteering my time to do that at no expense to the town or the town people.
So, Bill, if you can just add to that, that you're doing that outside of your role as Board of Selectmen, and then you'll be covered under.
I'm gonna be doing that outside my role as a selectman. So, that's it, really.
Yeah, so just to add to that, so yes, so Nichols Village called and graciously donated, from what Bill has said, it's a beautiful Christmas tree, and did not want to just have it go to waste since it was knocked over with the storm. So we actually were speaking at the night of Pumpkin Fest that we would like to possibly do a winter ceremony or do something more in the wintertime. So this would be a perfect addition to the town hall lawn. Maybe we could incorporate, an ornament making, people could bring homemade ornaments or something like that, and just get another town-wide event going on an annual basis. So I did speak with the road commissioner about where we could put it and if he wants to actually plant it with the roots or if we want to put a pipe in the ground. So we're still working out those logistics with the irrigation system out front and where it would go. But I did tell Nichols that we would be happy to take that tree from them.
That's it. Lisa?
I apologize, because I probably should have mentioned this under old business, but Ed sort of reminded me that the Elm Square Committee did have their first meeting, I think it was November 8th or 9th. And the next meeting is going to be Wednesday, December 6th. There were meeting minutes prepared. As soon as those are approved by the committee, they'll be forwarded to the Board of Selectmen. But the next meeting is December 6th at
Lisa,
6
did
p.m.
you guys reorganize so we can update our website?
You mean a chair? So right now, Greg Stark is the chair, but we're waiting to hear from Scott Bacuzzo about whether they would be co-chairs.
Okay, so I'll wait on that. We have it sort of just pending on our website.
It's still a 6-member board?
It's
Yes.
still a 6-member board.
Haven't any luck on the 7th?
No, and that's still on our website as well.
I get some time, maybe.
set, Lisa? Bill?
I'm actually quite good.
Really? Look at you. All right. I have one small thing. We have a meeting on December 26th, which is the day after Christmas. That meeting is historically slow and light on the agenda. I will not be available for that meeting, so I think the only business that we might have is the warrants, most likely. So if the board wanted to basically cancel that meeting and just authorize one person from the board to sign the warrants, we could avoid that situation, but
I would be in support of that, because I'm not going to be here on the 26th either, and I don't know if others, so I'm,
No, I'm not available for that meeting
So
either.
we
all
don't-
right, well, let's
All
make
right,
a decision
so-
now then.
So I would, so you should designate one person to just
So it's Bill
sign.
and Bill. What do you
And
got?
then they would have to report back at the following meeting what the totals were and what they signed. And I
That was
don't,
in The Hague, don't worry about it, we'll continue without.
I have
Doesn't really
already
shot 'em good.
planned any of your year-end business for the December 11th meeting anyways, just because we did that last year.
All right, so either Bill or Bill could take care of that, we'll vote at the next meeting.
What's the date?
It has to be sometime that week, doesn't have to be on the 26th. So
be here.
before the
I'll be here.
28th, it would have to
Or if he
be.
gets there first with the pen.
I'll meet you, we'll just, toss papers back and forth.
Awesome.
Yeah, and then one more thing to add, so with the Thanksgiving holiday next week, the agenda has to be posted on Tuesday. So if anyone on this board has anything extra, I currently only have 2 items on the next agenda, which is hopefully town council. He's confirmed that that will be the meeting he comes in to give you all an update on the litigation status of the town. And Sam Jocelyn, building inspector, wants to come in and talk about the department and the fee structure. So that's all I have on there right now, but the agenda will close on Tuesday next week because of the holidays and the 48-hour requirement of the open meeting law. So,
Okay.
just so you know that.
All right, so can we get a motion to adjourn at 8:28?
Motion to adjourn.
All those in favor? Thank you.
You didn't get a second.
We're making things quick. You going away?
Do I know